Give them a shot to do what?
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Shy Kid, and you are listening to the Shy Kid podcast brought to you by the Give Us a Shot Network. Make sure you give us a like, a subscribe, a follow, and give us a shot because we're making amazing content every single day for you guys, whether it's NHL, NBA, which we got NBA playoffs coming up, the WNBA draft tomorrow night. So make sure you tune in with myself. I'm covering everything Chicago Sky, and of course, Protect Our Queens, who cover the entire WNBA and women's sports as a whole. With that being said, welcome to the podcast, baby. The Shy Kid podcast, only brought to you by the Give Us a Shot Network. You can check us out on all social media platforms: TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere you get your podcasts. You could check us out. But with that being said, let's get into tonight's episode because the Chicago Cubs have won their first road series of 2024. Play the damn song, baby. I mean, there's no other way to feel about it. It was a rocky start with a Jordan Wicks loss to start it off, but Shota Imanaga on a shoulder shove day improves to a phenomenal statistic. I mean, a 0.00 ERA in his first three starts. You're looking at 16 Ks in 15 innings pitched. The man has been absolutely dominant. And then obviously, it's an ass man Sunday. Cubs win on Sunday, which was one of the biggest storylines of 2024 that we couldn't get done. And now we're getting it done. Ass man Javier Assad himself is on the bump for the Chicago Cubs. They win 3-2. Another great start by Javier Assad. I got him on my fantasy team right now. It's great because you can have him as both a reliever and a starter. Would you believe me if I told you Javier Assad gave me more points today than Blake Snell? Blake Snell allowed 7 earned runs, -1 points on my fantasy team. Still won the week. So I don't want to hear it. Bob and Duelas are now 1-0 on our fantasy baseball season. Shout out to them. Bobby Witt Jr., Ellie De La Cruz, Christopher Morel doing their thing, helping me out. But man, in all seriousness, man, we saw amazing Chicago Cubs baseball this weekend. Since 1901, there has been 0 Cubs players that are rookies in their rookie seasons to have 4 straight games of consecutive home runs until today. Michael Busch is making Chicago Cubs history, batting over 300 with 5 home runs on the year. We were there. Give Us a Shot Network was there in person interviewing fans as Michael Busch hit his first Cubs home run of his career against the Los Angeles Dodgers. So that was really cool to see that in person. And he's been on a tear ever since. 4 straight games with a home run. Absolutely phenomenal by Michael Busch, who we had a lot of questions about going into the season. We know where we're going to have Matt Mervis still competing for that first base spot, Dominic Smith, and so many others. And it seems like Michael Busch is here to stay. The Busch man himself, Busch Light, has to give him a deal at some point, you would imagine. But man, we're here right now, man. We're here right now talking Cubs baseball. The Cubs have been great, and let's break it down. Let's have a real conversation. Let's break down what we saw from the Chicago Cubs thus far. Now, first game against the Seattle Mariners, coming off a series loss against the San Diego Padres in the West Coast trip. You got to get a dub, and the Cubs just fell short. 2-4, they lose this game. Wasn't great whatsoever. Jose Cuas saw his last start in a Chicago Cubs, or his last day in a Chicago Cubs uniform, I should say. Obviously being brought down, the Cubs had to do what they had to do in that moment just because he just hasn't been productive whatsoever. But the Cubs offense was the big story here. Outside of Seiya Suzuki in game 1 and Michael Busch and Nico Horner, there really wasn't much going on. There's zeros all around the board. Now, shout out to Ian Happ, who had a 13-game streak of getting on base, whether that was hit or walk. But, the Cubs offense in this game was really just lackluster. And on top of that, Jordan Wicks did not have himself a day. 6 Ks and 4 innings pitched with 5 hits allowed and 4 earned runs with 4 walks. Wasn't great whatsoever. Drew Smyly looked solid coming out of the pen, and Keegan Thompson struck out 3 guys in a row. Which was great to see in 2 innings pitched. Obviously, they bring him up. They bring down Jose Cuas, so that was really dope to see him get back in a Chicago Cubs uniform. He's got a stash now. I'm rocking with it. He looks like a police officer. He looks like a firefighter, so it's pretty cool to see that. Shout out Keegan Thompson. But, the Cubs right now, man, are in a situation to where you gotta win this series. You gotta win the series. There's no doubt about it. You could not lose 2 out of 3 series on the West Coast trip of 2024. Going back into Wrigley Field against the Miami Marlins, that's a series that you have to win as well. So you want to have a positive outlook going into it. You beat LA, you sweep the Rockies, you take a game against the defending champs. So it looked a little bleak against the San Diego Padres because we really were putting our best foot forward in those games. We just couldn't finish well. So game one obviously wasn't the greatest. Game two, show to shove day, great performance all around. The Chicago Cubs win this game 4-1. Shota Imanaga, kind of lost control towards the second inning of that, or the second half of that game for him. Wasn't the greatest performance, and Ian Happ obviously loses his streak. It ends at 14 games. Shota Imanaga in 5.1 innings pitched, 5 hits allowed, 0 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. I will say this: I took Cubs money line and Shota Imanaga for 5Ks, so I lost $40. But it is what it is. A Cubs dub. If I get to play the damn song, I'm happy about it. Um, but at the end of the day, man, I'm really looking forward to see what the Chicago Cubs team has the intangibles to do when they're fully healthy. We're talking about it again. We're sitting here tonight discussing what this team looks like right now. Obviously, Nico Horner isn't playing his best baseball. Justin Steele's not here. Jameson Tyon's not here. Patrick Wisdom, he's not here either. Let's just say for the sake of argument. We're losing a lot of guys right now. And I think the biggest takeaway from this team is disciplined. This team fights. There's not the inconsistencies throughout the lineup that we saw in 2022 and 2023 trying to put a roster together. Some of that was on David Ross. Some of it wasn't, just because it's a rebuilding team. But with that being said, understanding what this team has the capability to do. I think there's so many different levels of what we can say the Chicago Cubs team is. And when you look at a bullpen with Mark Leiter Jr. having as much success as he has, Yency Almonte, who's been solid thus far, Hector Neris, and Adbert Alzolay, who has finally gotten his feet from under him. He's looked solid. And I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this team continues to look. They obviously bring in another arm, another starter into who has a 13.50 ERA with the New York Mets this season, in Julio, who spent a lot of time, Julio Teheran, obviously coming from the New York Mets organization, but spent his 2023 season with the Milwaukee Brewers, who in recent years have really been able to develop pitching really well. So if we could somehow, some way get Julio a little bit extra juice out of him, so I think that could definitely benefit the team while we wait for Justin Steele and Jameson Tyone to continue to get better. We saw Tyone, obviously he's been rehabbing in AAA Iowa, so that's been fun. Patrick Wisdom has been rehabbing as well, so the young cats got a lot of veterans in there right now at the major league level. But nonetheless, man, I'm excited for what this team has to offer. Game two, 4-1. Christopher Morel and company were just outstanding. I think the big note here and the conversation starter is guys are hitting home runs, but guys are getting on base even more. And I think that's the more exciting thing when we talk about what the Chicago Cubs have been able to do, and what they're going to be able to do throughout 162 games this season. The big question for me, what we're going to talk about a little bit later, is some of the guys who are off to rocky starts and when we actually start to have concern. Now, let's talk about game three really quick before we get into that. Game three, ass man on the mound, Javier Assad, absolutely flawless in this game. I mean, he's showing you, man, like even when Jameson Tyone comes back, is there a conversation where Javier Assad has to stay in the starting rotation? I think there is. Whether it's Kyle Hendricks or Tyone, I definitely think one of these guys are going to get bumped because of Javier Assad's success. Javier Assad tonight, 5.2 innings pitched, 2 earned runs against a solid offense, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, and 4 hits allowed. So you look at that and you're like, man, this kid's absolutely dominant. You have Yency Almonte, Mark Leiter Jr., and Hector Neris, followed by Adbert Alzolay to get the dub. You're looking at a guy who has really just been able to live up to the challenge. You know what I mean? He's stepping up to the plate, no pun intended, and he's been phenomenal. So, I love it, man. And unfortunately, I think a guy like Kyle Hendricks might lose his job because of Javier Assad. The upside is just there. And unfortunately for Kyle, we're just at this point in our relationship with him where it's like, thank you for everything, forever and always. But we cannot continue to live in 2016. And that's just the reality. And I don't want that to come off as I want Kyle out of here. I want them to DFA him. But, you have to put guys in position to have success, and you have to put guys in a spot to where you're going to have to make a decision. Do you want Cade Horton to be in the big leagues this year? Do you want Jordan Wicks and Ben Brown and Javier Assad to continue to have success? Or are you going to continue throwing Kyle Hendricks out there to give up about 4+ earned runs every single game? Um, no velocity, no tick. The paint and corners era kind of seems like it's coming to an end. I know it's early to be saying these things, but it's we saw that towards the end of last season. He started off strong after coming back from Iowa and the injury in April and May and June, and he was great. But can you hold that? And I think that's the real question right now for me is, what is Javier Assad going to be able to provide for the Cubs that Kyle Hendricks can't? You know what I mean? And that's really what you have to answer. Can Kyle Hendricks keep up with these guys? And I honestly don't think he can at this point in time. But I'd still love him to be a part of the ball club. How do I put this? If you put it like Jason Hayward of 2022? Jason Hayward in 2022 didn't play him towards the end of the season, but you had him in the ball club just to be a voice, just to be a veteran, just to be a mentor to the young guys. I think that's a great role for Kyle right now, kind of like a player's coach. Unless he really wants out of here, unless he wants to go to a contending team, another contending team, I should say, because we're a contending team. That's really where I'm at with it. But talking about this game with Javier Assad, obviously wasn't a great performance all around from everybody. Christopher Morel 0 for 4. Dansby Swanson had a great defensive performance today. Michael Busch, I mean, he had a little mix up defensively the other night. But man, a towering home run, 2 RBIs on the day, and 4 at bats. He had 2 hits. He's been, I mean, phenomenal. Michael Busch, who the Los Angeles Dodgers organization practically said there is no role for you in the starting rotation, in the starting lineup, is now batting .327 on the year with 5 home runs. He has eclipsed, no pun intended, the amount of RBIs he had last year in 27 games. And he had 7 RBIs in 2023 in 27 games played. He has played 15 games with less than half of the at-bats, and he has 11 RBIs. He's been in a great position to have success. I'm excited to see what the future holds for him. I think we found our cornerstone first baseman. This is hopefully going to be the replacement of Anthony Rizzo that we've been waiting for. I mean, let's break it down. Let's talk. Let's give a list. I mean, you're looking at Patrick Wisdom, Frank Schwindel, Cody Bellinger, Matt Mervis, Trey Mancini, Eric Hosmer, Hall of Famer, who Michael Powers and I are going to be interviewing him on Wednesday, so definitely tune in for that. That's going to be an absolute blast, an absolute honor to talk to a Hall of Famer. But with that being said, his stint on the Cubs, man, like you're going through all these first basemen, and you just can't find your guy. You bring in Michael Busch, you trade Jackson Ferris and hope for him. It's a top 10 prospect in the Cubs system, a great lefty arm, and Hope, who's just a solid, outfielder in the minor leagues, maybe AA, AAA ball. And you get Michael Busch, and you understand batted like 167 last year in the big leagues, and now he's batting .327. Is that going to sustain success? I don't know. But if he can provide an over .260 batting average for the Chicago Cubs and pump out over 20 home runs, I think that's a success for his first year in the big leagues. I truly do. Let's be real. Like, do you want to trade the whole farm for Pete Alonso, or are you willing to rock out with Michael Busch? Now, if you're willing to trade Michael Busch for Pete Alonso, I think there's a conversation. I think there's a conversation. But again, Scott Boras client, free agent at the end of the year. Do you even want to deal with that when you have Michael Busch on a contract for years? So, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a lot of fun. Jay, what's happening, baby? I see you in the comments, man. I hope you're doing amazing, bro. I see the UFC content's going great for you, bro. So appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you being here, bro. But yeah, man, we got so much we're talking about. So much amazing stuff. Jay's actually in Arizona right now. Cubs are headed there. Cubs versus Diamondbacks. It's going to be an interesting series. I just can't wait to get after it, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be one of those things where I think this is going to be a big statement for the Chicago Cubs. We saw what happened with the Texas Rangers, and unfortunately, they just got they got a foot over us on that one. But I think we're in a different position now. We're more comfortable. We're more confident. You're going to be having a solid part of the rotation going after them. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I think the Kyle Hendricks game is going to be a little rough. But it is what it is. Hopefully the bats can help him out. So with that being said, though, I love what we're seeing from this team. The fight, the overall character, the energy. If you saw the interview on from opening day of Dansby Swanson, Mike Talkman, and Cody Bellinger absolutely busting guts about Nick Madrigal standing next to Luke Little, 6'8", standing next to 5'8". I mean, crazy. There's a whole foot difference. Which I'm not even making fun of Nikki because I'm 5'8" myself, so I'm not even gonna sit here and flodge like I'm not I'm not the ones. Like I literally, bro, like that's how I would look standing next to Luke Little too. I think a lot of us would. Um, but man, it's super fun to watch this team go out there and ball out. Now, before we get out of here, there are three conversations I want to have because we are 15 plus games into the season now. Number one, I want to talk about Nico Horner. Nico Horner is in a situation right now to where I think you're not starting to have concern, but you're starting to ask the whys. As Matt Nagy once said, why are we batting 182 when you are a career 285 plus hitter? I think right now, when you watch Nico Horner's game, I don't think it's where a lot of people have talked about. He wanted to hit for more power, and that's a huge part of this offseason, and it's kind of changed his approach. His approach looks the same, I would say. The bat doesn't look like it's heavier on him. He's not throwing a huge load. Pause. But I think the big thing for me with Nico Horner is I think you're starting to feel it. I think you're starting to smell it. You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is when you're in a slump, bro, if you've played in a legitimate level, on any level, whether it's collegiate, whether it's JUCO, whether it's major leagues, whether it's somewhere in a minor league system or just high school ball, if you're in a slump, you're going to do whatever you can to get out of it. And I think with Nico, I'm starting to see him chase a little bit more. I'm starting to see him swing at pitches that I know he doesn't want to swing at, but he's just trying to hack a shack at something to get something out there, even if it's a blooper. I think he just wants to get that hit. And I think, with Nico, man, Nico Suave, I love Nico, man. Nico is one of the greatest pieces of what this current Cubs core is. And I think he embodies what it means to be a Chicago Cub. So I'm not going to sit here today and start screaming for the head of Nico Horner because I believe he's going to get out of this at some point very soon. I'm excited for that day to happen because I believe when Nico is hitting and he's on his P's and Q's, that's when this offense is going to take the next step. That's when this offense is going to become the best versions of themselves because you have Nico in the 6-7 hole batting 290. Name a guy in the 6-7 hole or 8 hole batting 290. Come on, let's be real. It doesn't happen. So to have Nico in that position, or even if you want, I think Ian Happ's kind of taking it over thus far. I will say that I'll give him his flowers. I'll give him. My cues was wrong. It's perfectly okay. But I think when you have those situations with the lefty righty matchup of Nico and Ian, I think the plan was against lefties. You're gonna have, if I'm not mistaken, you're gonna have Nico in there, and against righties, you're going to have Ian Happ in there, or vice versa, whatever the plan was for Craig Counsell. But with the slow start, you might as well just keep Happer in there. He's a switch hitter. It is what it is, and you don't want to put more pressure on Nico. So yeah, I definitely question to why he's in that spot. Another reason, we talk about this a lot. Position is everything. Where you're at in a lineup could make or break how you go about your approach. And I think it's definitely possible. Nico batting 285 plus his entire Cubs career, batting top 4 in the lineup, put him in 7th. And it's like maybe that's a different approach. Maybe that's a reason why there's a slow start. I don't know. But there's not too much room for concern at this very point in time. Number 2, Shota Imanaga, Michael Busch. We're going to mention both of them. National League Rookie of the Year candidates by far. And what we're seeing from them right now is that they could be huge pillars to this organization. I know we're 15 plus games in. And this is not the end all be all. It's a very long season, but man, bro, I mean, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about what this team could potentially look like. The infield is set if Michael Busch continues to develop. If Michael Busch stays where he is right now, or even even drops down just a little bit, because 327 batting average is crazy. But if he can be the everyday first baseman for the Chicago Cubs, the up the middle defense of Nico Horner and Dansby Swanson, nickel and dimes, with Cody Bellinger out there in center field, Ian Happ in left, Seiya Suzuki in right, third base. Christopher Morel's made a couple outstanding plays in the Seattle series. I was super proud of him. We've seen some errors, we've seen some bad plays, we've seen some decent plays, and we've seen some great plays. Like, I know that's a very basic statement, but it's really been a roller coaster of emotions thus far with Christopher Morel defensively at third base. And as of late, he's played very well. So if you can have Morel at third base, um, and continue to have that be an everyday occurrence without being concerned or worried about it, the Cubs are going to be in a great position. Obviously, Miguel Amaya is going to succeed Yan Gomes at some point, but Yan has been decent. A slow start to the year, 0 for 10, but he's been picking it up, and obviously Miguel Amaya has been solid. He got his first home run of the year during the Seattle series. So, with that being said, shout out to Miguel, by the way, wearing number 9. I saw a lot of people on Twitter saying they didn't notice that he was wearing number 9. Now they thought he was still wearing number 6, but yeah, I peeped that a little bit during spring training, and definitely something I picked up on. The El Mago era is over. So you have to take it for what it is. But this is the Amaya era now. So it's interesting, man. It's interesting to see this team get going, and obviously we're halfway through April already. So Justin Steele is going to be back very soon. We understand that Jameson Tyone will be back, and we'll see what happens with Patrick Wisdom and if he can find a spot in this lineup again. So number 3, though, and this is the one I want to continue to talk about. This is the best defense in baseball. This team is a Gold Glove team. Period. I truly believe that. I truly believe on all cylinders. You're looking at 5 plus Gold Glovers when everybody's here. Let's look at Pete Crow Armstrong, Cody Bellinger. Those are 2. Seiya Suzuki was a Gold Glover in Japan. He's been solid. That's 3. Ian Happ's won it back-to-back years. Nico Horner, Dansby Swanson. That's silver 6. And I think, you look at it for what it is and understand that, this team defensively can be menacing to so many different teams in the league. And with the pitching staff that they have right now with Tommy Hotovy and company, bringing back Justin Steele and Tyone, I mean, the sky is really the limit as long as these bats continue to have success. But we're on to Arizona. We're on our way to the hottest state in the country. I'm excited about it. Back in AZ, we saw how much success the Cubs were having in Arizona in spring training, so can't wait to go back there. And we are going to be in there like swimwear talking about it. But make sure before you get out of here, you hit that follow button if you haven't already. Check me out on all social media platforms at theshy.kid on TikTok and Instagram. Daily Cubs content, daily Cubs and Bears news. We got the WNBA draft tomorrow. I'll be covering it as Chicago Sky Media and WNBA Media. Hopefully the Chicago Sky end up getting 2 generational caliber players at 3 and 7. We'll see what happens. Caitlin Clark's era in the WNBA is going to begin. So make sure you check us out on Give Us a Shot Network. Give us a like, give us a subscribe. You can check the link in the bio. All of our platforms from YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere you can find us is in that link in the bio up top here in this episode if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook. With that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is Mike Hughes, aka The Shy Kid. You are listening to The Shy Kid podcast, only brought to you by Give Us a Shot Network. Until then, go Cubs, baby. Play the damn song.